And then
It froze. That chair was adjusted for Jim Etzel. Jesus Christ.
it's on. It's on?
I think so.
No one touch it. That's great.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Ready?
Exactly.
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Metro Council business meeting of December 12th, 2024. We have a quorum. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Simpson.
Good morning, President.
Good morning. Counselor Lewis.
Present.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Present.
Counselor Wong.
Present.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Present.
Counselor Nolan will be here shortly, and Council President Peterson.
Here. Thank you. Georgia, will you please play the safety video for in-person attendees?
I'm Laura Lepley, a Metro Park Ranger. Here at Oxbow Park, safety is our #1 priority, not only for our guests, but for our staff members. I'm at the Welcome Center and you're at the Regional Center. The council chambers are located on the 3rd floor. In the event of a fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room. Go down the stairway to the 2nd floor, exit through the main entrance by the reception desk, and gather in the courtyard outside that entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the reception desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you, and come visit us at Oxbow Park.
All right. Thank you. We will now open the public communication on non-agenda items. Georgia, will you please describe to the audience our procedures for the public communication portion of the meeting?
If anyone wishes to testify on non-agenda items, now is the time to do so. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. I will manage a timer to go off at the 3-minute mark. If you have not already signed up to speak, you can do so now. If you are joining us on Zoom, you can sign up to testify by raising your hand on Zoom. Depending on your version of Zoom, the raise hand function has its own tab or is located within the reactions tab. Those calling in can raise their hands by dialing *9. If you are joining us in person, you can sign up by filling out one of the blue cards in the back of the room and bringing it up to me. For those joining us on Zoom, I will promote you to a full panelist when it is your turn to testify. I will call on your name or phone number when it is your turn to testify, and a window will appear asking you to accept being promoted to a panelist. Once you click to accept, your Zoom window will close for just a brief moment before you rejoin as a panelist, where you will be able to turn on your camera if you like. As a reminder, you do not need to give your physical address. However, please introduce yourself for the record before testifying. And Council President Peterson, I have not received any blue cards for in-person members, and I have to see no one raising their hand on Zoom.
Great. Seeing no one running forward and no hands raised, we'll close testimony on non-agenda items and move on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on our consent agenda today. Resolution number 24-5443 for the purpose of adding or amending a total of 6 projects to the 2024 through 27 MTIP to meet federal project delivery requirements. Resolution number 24-5435 for the purpose of directing staff to develop Metro Code and administrative rule language to prohibit the landfill disposal of commercial food waste generated within the region effective January 1st, 2027. And consideration of the November 7th, 2024 council meeting minutes. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Move adoption.
Thank you. Do I have a second? It's been moved by Councilor Nolan, seconded by Councilor Rosenthal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Yes.
All those opposed, nay. The motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to resolutions. We have resolution 24-5437 first for the purpose of Metro Council's acceptance of the results of the independent audit for financial activity during fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. This resolution is the financial audit required by state law and Metro Code to be completed annually. To share the audit results, we have Brian Evans, our Metro auditor, and
Ashley Austin.
it's okay. I was just about to ask Brian to introduce staff, so thank you.
Great.
Go ahead, auditor.
Thank you, Council President Peterson and Metro Councilors. Yes, I'm here today with Ashley Austin from Moss Adams to present the results of the fiscal year of 23-24 financial audit. We're joined by Caleb Ford, Metro's Deputy Chief Financial Officer, who will give the management response to the audit. As a reminder for everybody watching, Oregon law requires Metro to file the financial audit report with the state by the end of the calendar year, and this presentation and the accompanying resolution are the last steps in this audit process. The purpose is to inform council and the public about the results of the audit and discuss any need for corrective action. In this case, there isn't a need for corrective action, so I'll let Ashley just detail the results. Prior to the meeting, or prior to this presentation, Metro's audit committee met twice. The first meeting was in May to learn about Moss Adams' plan for the audit this year, and the second meeting was at the end of November to hear the results. I want to thank members of the audit committee that include Councilor Rosenthal, Merck Commissioner Damian Hall, as well as 4 members of the public who serve on a volunteer basis. Special thanks to one of our public members, Mark Ulanowitz, who has finished 2 consecutive terms, so we will be recruiting for a new public member in the new year. And I'd also like to thank Ashley and Brian Kennedy and Caleb for their teams for the work on this audit and getting it done on time. I'll turn it over to Ashley to present the results.
Good morning.
Again, my name is Ashley Austin. I'm a partner with Moss Adams, here to deliver the results of the audit for 2024. Go ahead to the next slide, please. This is just a little agenda. I'll go through our auditor opinions and reports, the required communications with those charged with governance. We did a detailed communication with the audit committee that Brian just described, but I'll give you a high-level overview of what we discussed and then an accounting update. Go to 2 slides, please. One more. This slide is a little small, but it does describe all of the reports that we've issued. So the first is the report of independent auditors. We issued an unmodified opinion, meaning your financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. That's a clean opinion. That's what you want to hear. The second opinion is our report on internal control over financial reporting in accordance with government auditing standards, because you receive and spend more than $750,000 of federal funds, and pleased to report that there were no control findings and no compliance findings reported in that report. The third report on that slide is related to the specific bucket of funding that we performed additional testing on related to your federal funds. So this year we performed additional procedures over your federal transit cluster, which totaled about $2.1 million out of the around $8 million that was included on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. That report details that we tested the direct and material compliance requirements specific to that bucket of funding and didn't have any findings, no control findings and no compliance findings there. If you go to the next slide, we did issue 2 additional reports. The first on that slide is related to Oregon minimum standards. So you have to comply with specific items as an Oregon municipal corporation, such as complying with the budget, complying with procurement law. There are a few other items. We didn't have any control findings and no compliance findings included in that report. And then the final item on that slide is related to your general obligation bonds for natural areas, affordable housing, and the parks and nature. We do some additional testing to determine that the expenditures that are recorded related to those are in accordance with the levy and the bond measure, the voter measure, excuse me. So we didn't find anything that would indicate that those expenditures were spent for other purposes than what was included in that voter measure. If you go to the next slide, please. So we did have an in-depth discussion, which did include all of our required communications with the audit committee back in November before we issued. Of course, our motivation is to hit the reporting deadline of December 31st so that you can submit your ACFR to the state before December 31st, which is the deadline. We did have no corrected audit adjustments during the year, but we did have 2 small immaterial past adjustments. Those are adjustments that we identified, presented to management, said, would you like to post these adjustments? They're immaterial to the financial statements, but they're above our findings threshold, where we are required to communicate it to both the audit committee, to management, et cetera. But they said, no, we would like to pass on posting those to the trial balance, and we said that's okay. We are required to communicate those to the audit committee, though. We didn't have any difficulties encountered in performing the audit, and we didn't have any disagreements with management throughout our audit procedures. So it was a very good process. Management was very easy to work with. If you go to the next slide, this highlights the internal control items that we discussed with the audit committee. No material weaknesses and no significant deficiencies or non-compliance. We did have a couple of best practice recommendations that I'll go over high level here. The first is on capital assets. So management did transfer one project's work in process. When they are ready to transfer that to a capital asset to start depreciating that, they did transfer one project to the incorrect in-service asset. The project numbers were very similar. It did result in an immaterial depreciation difference. So recommend that management do some review before the work in process gets transferred to capital assets. The second item there is accounts payable overpayments. We did identify one instance during our subsequent disbursement testing. So we're looking at disbursements that were paid after year end to see if those amounts were appropriately included or excluded from accounts payable at year end. And Metro had overpaid an invoice. It was due to a formula error in the support that was supporting the invoice. And so recommendation there just to be a little bit more diligent about reviewing the support behind the invoice that is being paid. There was 2 new IT deficiencies, both around user access reviews. So that's really getting at reviewing who has access to the system and documenting that review. Those deficiencies were identified for USC Direct and also for KMIT, both new in 2024. Those individuals that were assigned to do the user access reviews, that's the first time they performed that. So common to have some recommendations when that is being performed for the first time. And then if you go to the next slide, a couple slides, these are just the new standards that are coming down the pipeline for Metro to adopt. The first 2 will be effective for fiscal 25, which is next year, and then the following 2 are effective for 2026. I could go through a lot of details here, but I won't bore you. I will just advocate for management to continue to be able to go to those GFOA conferences and other CPE to get training on how to implement these standards, and then also communicate with your auditor to verify, if you're making judgment calls and those types of things. Finally, I just want to thank you for your attention, and also Auditor Evans and management for a smooth solicitation of the audit process in 2024. Open it up for questions.
Thank you. Auditor, do you have any?
Yes, thank you, Council President Peterson. My name is Caleb Ford, he, him pronouns. I'm the Deputy CFO here at Metro. And thank you for the opportunity to highlight one of the most important pieces of work that we do in the Finance Department. Brian extends his regrets, by the way. He is currently in Anchorage representing Oregon Government Finance Officers Association at Alaska's annual conference.
Cool.
I thought I was getting the better deal, but unfortunately it's only, I think, 7 degrees colder there right now. So, so the annual comprehensive financial report is an important document for Metro and a critical process for us to complete. While it is a requirement for us to complete an independent audit every year, I see this document as a critical communication tool, both to the residents of the Metro region as well as to the debt market, which helps us in delivering services by funding capital programs. Additionally, it's an unbiased set of eyes looking at how we go about our business and recommending areas where we can improve. Ashley highlighted a couple of those. It's akin to a dental cleaning. Everything can be A-okay, but they're still going to ask you about your flossing. And additionally, our staff go above and beyond the base requirements to ensure that this document does deliver on its goal. For the 32nd year, Metro has received the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for last year's financial report. We also expect to receive the award again for this year's report. That award reflects how Metro is ensuring accurate, readable financial data with the appropriate context and details for the readers to assess our books, assess our financial situation. So when you do pick up the ACFR, I would direct you to the management discussion and analysis. That section is akin to an executive summary for the rest of the report. It highlights and interprets Metro's key financial information. The notes section of the ACFR is also a great resource within the document for some of the context and details underlying the numbers. Another great resource for you is kind of a companion document, the Popular Annual Financial Report. We've been putting this together for about a decade now, and it's intended to be even more accessible. No accounting degree required. At 14 pages versus just over 200, the PAFR is a great snapshot of Metro's financial reports, financial condition, and is a very quick read. So the audit and compiling our financial report is a lot of work. We have an amazing team who takes this work head on. Melissa Weber, our Metro's controller, Erica Galucci, Carol Bernards, and the entire accounting team puts in a lot of time, extra hours to get this completed on time. Additionally, all the staff and leadership across the organization ensure we have strong internal controls and can have confidence in our numbers. So thank you to Ashley and the Moss Adams team. Thank you to Brian, Auditor Evans, and for facilitating the process. And I'm happy to take any questions that council has.
Counselors, any questions? Not seeing any because yet another good report. Much appreciated for all of the hard work in preparation and analysis. So thank you to all involved. And yeah, we're just happy to have you here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, Counselor Wong.
Just want to extend my appreciations for all the great work and a very great audit. I'm wondering if there's any expectation for greater scrutiny or from a federal level, from our federal funds with a new administration coming into place. Has that come up? Because I think I've heard greater scrutiny to be expected for potentially nonprofits and things like that. But I don't know if that extends to governments as well.
I mean, I can tell you we already are under a great amount of scrutiny with federal funds. I think Ashley can talk to some of the thresholds, but they're very, very low to make sure that we are following all the rules and regulations that the federal government sets forth. But I haven't heard of any particular change in legislation or administrative procedures at the federal level that would change that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing to add.
I would just add that Caleb is correct. Those materiality thresholds that we test to, you can't have a difference over 50 cents. You have to ask about it. If there's any one thing that's wrong, we're expanding our sample. Like, for example, if a report was filed late, we would pull probably all of the reports to determine that there were no additional reports that were filed late, to determine that it wasn't a control deficiency or a significant deficiency. I will also tell you that the regulators are getting a little bit more active. We've had more requests to look at our work papers from a regulatory standpoint, and I think they're catching up from the pandemic. So I don't know if you take that to be that you might have that additional scrutiny, but there is just more scrutiny on those funds in general from an audit perspective.
Thank you.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Auditor Evans and the Moss Adams team for their hard work and their thoroughness and their diligence, and I think also a little bit of a shout out to our staff and our administration for following the rules and paying attention to the rules and the changes that happen every year. The additions to the regulations that we have to follow. So just appreciation all around. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Counselor Gonzalez and then Lewis.
Thanks. Yeah, looks like the questions are coming up. I appreciate Counselor Wong's question about kind of forward looking and scrutiny and things like that. Kind of looking back for the last few years, I know there's been kind of conversation and I think you're getting into this with American Rescue Plan and CARES dollars and really starting to see how that money spent down went, and seeing a lot of our local partners beginning to dive into that. So I guess my question for our team is, I know we didn't receive a lot of the direct money, but how are we preparing for potential questions around money that we did receive? And in general, across the audit landscape, what are we starting to see in the first few, trends from audits into American Rescue Plan dollars and things like that? Just since I have an expert here to answer stuff, it'd be nice to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think go ahead.
I mean, as far as the federal dollars from those programs, what we were going to receive, we have received and have recorded on our books and has been audited already.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have as much of a tail as some of the other jurisdictions may have as far as how to spend those funds down. So as far as I'm concerned at this point, we're clean on that area.
Sweet.
Yeah, from my perspective, the only thing I would expect, because we haven't had any direct requests from Treasury. At least I haven't seen any requests from Treasury, which is where a lot of those funds came from, right? I think Metro received the Shuttered Venues Operating Grant Award, and I can't remember who that was from, but that was really the most significant federal funding as a result of COVID that you received. I think you did receive some additional funding that had been passed through for COVID-related items, but nothing consistent with, say, a county or a city that is spending additional funds for, emergency rental assistance, etc. So I haven't seen any requests from Treasury's perspective, but those could always come up. And those requests are just directed at our work papers. We don't actually go back and ask management to provide additional information. They're just really making sure that those funds have been audited and that we followed all of the rules and regulations as well.
Sure, thanks. Thanks for your hard work on that.
Councilor Lewis.
Sure. Thank you so much. Really nice to see such clean audit. So wasn't going to say anything, but everybody else started talking. You mentioned the additional review of bond funds and the control that you were searching for in terms of the allowable expenditure. Do you hold up state law and state statute to the bond expenditure, or do you do that both with state law and the actual code as adopted after passage of the measure?
Well, the expenditures that we're looking at, we're really just making sure that they are being expended for the purpose that was listed in the actual measure.
Okay.
So not related to a state regulation or state law. It's a negative assurance report. It essentially says that we didn't find anything that would lead us to believe that you spent funds on things that were not within that measure, but not related to a state law or state regulation. It's really focused on that.
So
that
it is measure specific, not bond eligibility that you're testing.
Yes,
Great.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion for Resolution 24-5437 for the purpose of Metro Council's acceptance of the results of the independent audit for financial activity during fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024?
I'll move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Gonzalez and seconded by Councilor Rosenthal. Georgia, will you please call the... Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any further discussion before I jump? Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Excuse me. Counselor Nolan.
Yes.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Yes.
Counselor Wong.
Yes.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Counselor Lewis.
Aye.
Counselor Simpson.
Aye.
And Council President Peterson.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to resolution number 24-5445 for the purpose of approving funding for Parks and Nature Bond Large Scale Community Visions Program. Councilors, we will be considering designating the funding from the Large Scale Community Visions Program to Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement Project. The Kellogg Creek Restoration Project is an opportunity to make a strategic investment in the health of our region's environment, climate resiliency, and restoring the creek is not just an environmental effort, but also a recognition of the deep connection between tribes, the land, water, and the first floods and species who rely upon it. First floods. That goes back. No? Okay. The project will also support economic and community benefits in downtown Milwaukee with greater access to nature and safe transportation options surrounding the creek. To share more about the of this project is Parks and Nature Director and staff and guests.
Thank you. Good morning, Council President Peterson, councilors. For the record, John Blashier, Parks and Nature Director here at Metro. We ready to do some exciting work today? Make some great awards? Fantastic. Very excited to be here today, joined by Linda Bartolini Venegas, and we're here to get your consideration and adoption of Resolution 245445 to approve funding for Parks and Nature's large-scale community visions program. We can go to the next slide, please. Really excited to be here with you today to provide an update and a request for action on this program. As a reminder, the Bonds Large-Scale Community Visions program was created by Metro Council to fund large-scale projects that uplift communities by leveraging nature investments to achieve benefits such as job opportunities, affordable housing, and safe, reliable transportation. These projects are transformative local projects of regional significance that increase access to nature for people in urban areas and or improve the resilience of urban natural areas. By leveraging other public and private investments, these capital projects will also support improvement in housing, safe, reliable transportation, and job creation. Next slide, please. As you may recall, staff launched the second round of the program this year, and applicants could submit a letter of interest or an LOI at any point once the solicitation opened on April 15th. Staff reviewed those LOIs based on compliance with council-approved bond and criteria and bond requirements, including the need for the resulting project to be a capital asset in public ownership. LOIs that met council approval, that met approved program criteria and bond requirements were then invited to submit a full application by October 1st. 3 applications were completed and were received and were evaluated by an internal staff composed of staff from Parks and Nature and our planning and research departments, council-defined criteria, and on the alignment with the values of the large-scale community visions program. On October 15th, we had a work session with you all to provide council a refresher of the program on the status, the criteria and process, as well as provide a high-level overview of the 3 applications that were submitted. Following that work session, we held briefing with council to help provide more detailed project evaluations on all 3 applications, which we'll touch on in the next slide. I'll go to that next slide, and I'm going to pass it to Linda to talk through the 3 projects.
Yeah, good morning. So in the 2024 cycle of the program, we did receive 3 applications. One was from the East Portland Nature Center, submitted by Bird Alliance of Oregon and City of Portland for $6.9 million for site acquisition and restoration in East Portland. The Food Waste Corridor project, submitted by Rockwood Community Development Corporation of Oregon and East Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District for $3.6 million for site acquisition in Gresham. And the Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement project, submitted by North Clackamas Watersheds Council, Oregon Department of Transportation, City of Milwaukee, and American Rivers for $10 million for restoration and improved fish passage of Kellogg Creek. The 3 applicants brought forth worthy and creative projects with meaningful connections to their respective communities, and they align to varying degrees with the bond and program criteria and the goal of significant investments in habitat restoration and capital projects with housing, transportation, and economic development components. After reviewing the proposals and staff evaluations, Metro Council signaled that 2 projects, the East Portland Nature Center and Kellogg Creek Restoration, had the potential to fully address the bond measure and program requirements. Based on the evaluation of project readiness, ability to meet the bond requirements, and advance desired bond and program outcomes, staff recommends that the Metro Council approve Resolution 245445 to select the Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement Project as a large-scale community visions project to the full requested funding amount and not exceeding the $10 million threshold. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk through some details of the project. So funding the project at this full $10 million will also be pivotal to unlocking federal funding up to $50 million for construction of the project, which is significance aligns with tribal priorities. Supporting this project will contribute to a lasting positive environmental legacy for future generations. By removing the barrier at Kellogg Dam, provide fish passage to 17 habitat, restore 14 of high-quality riparian habitat, and restore the creek's flood storage capacity to reduce flooding in Lower Kellogg Creek. In addition to the significant habitat restoration, the project will also modernize the existing Oregon State Highway 99 East Bridge, create a multimodal trail underpass, public access and viewing points, and provide interactive learning, scientific research, and world laboratory opportunities for student involvement. The urbanized areas of downtown Milwaukee, and the combination of transportation infrastructure and major ecosystem restoration will help create opportunities to increase equity in hiring, contracting, and economic development. Furthermore, tribal relationships are key to the development of the project, and it is supported by the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs, the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon, and the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. Tribal interests in the project include restoration of fish populations and habitats and native plant species, protection of cultural resources, project development, inclusion of Indigenous knowledge in later stages of project design, and opportunities to share tribal history via interpretive exhibits, public art, and other opportunities. At this point, Director John Blasher will take a moment to read the letters of support submitted from the tribes.
Thank you, Linda. Few letters here to read. This first one's from the Confederate Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon. Dear Metro President Peterson, councilors, writing to express the support of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon's Natural Resources Department for the Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement Project, which will remove the Kellogg Dam, restore Kellogg Creek, and replace the earthquake-vulnerable Highway 99 East, which is Kellogg Creek Bridge, and to express our participation in the project. We firmly support the application to Metro's large-scale community visions program, and we urge you to fund this project. The tribe's Natural Resources Department are committed to being part of this project. We have a representative on the project technical advisory team who assists in developing the project in a way that achieves the best outcomes for restoration of salmonids and lamprey, which are culturally significant to the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde. We are also committed to participating with the cultural and community engagement parts of the project, which has many opportunities to tell our people in the region. The removal of Kellogg Dam is a priority to the tribe's Natural Resources Department, as it will benefit several species of importance to our tribal community: Pacific lamprey, winter steelhead, coho salmon, resident cutthroat trout, and fall and spring Chinook salmon. It will open 17 miles of streams to Endangered Species Act listed salmonids and lamprey. Importantly, this project will benefit both Upper Willamette and Lower Columbia ESA listed salmon and steelhead populations, as it will provide vital rearing and migratory habitat to all Willamette Valley stocks. This project will have a noticeably positive impact on Willamette Valley tribes' usual and accustomed places and support tribal values and interests. Kellogg Dam has blocked these streams since statehood and has served no purpose since the 1890s. The time to remove this important barrier is now. We urge you to fully fund this application. Sincerely, Colby Drake, Natural Resources Department Manager for the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. Next, this is from the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. Dear Metro President Peterson, councilors, the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs branch of Natural Resources firmly supports the application to the NOAA Fisheries by the Clackamas Watershed Council, ODOT, and the City of Milwaukee to complete the Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement Project. The project will in part remove Kellogg Dam and replace the earthquake-vulnerable Highway 99E Kellogg Creek Bridge. The removal of Kellogg Dam will restore access to 9.5 miles of streams for spawning and rearing habitat for Upper Willamette and Lower Columbia ESA-listed salmon and steelhead populations, as well as other culturally important fish species, such as Pacific lamprey and cutthroat trout. The branch of Natural Resources has worked since time immemorial as stewards of our native fish populations across our ceded lands and our usual and accustomed station, including the Willamette Valley. We are committed to being a part of this project. We have a representative on the Project Technical Advisory Committee who will assist in developing the project. Kellogg Dam has blocked these streams since statehood, serving no purpose whatsoever since the 1890s. The time to remove this important barrier is now. We urge you to fully fund this application. Sincerely, Austin Smith Jr., the General Manager for the Branch of Natural Resources for the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs. And third letters from the Confederate Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. Dear President Peterson and the Large Scale Community Visions Program Administration, I'm writing to express the support of the Confederate Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation Department of Natural Resources for the Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement Project, which will remove Kellogg Dam, restore Kellogg Creek, and replace the vulnerable Highway 99E Kellogg Creek Bridge. We support the application to Metro's large-scale community visions program. In addition to the ecological merits of the proposed work, Kellogg Creek is home to a population of Odonta oregonensis, which is an Oregon floater, as you all know, that are of particular interest to the tribe's freshwater mussel program for use in our artificial propagation program. The tribe has an existing professional relationship with Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement Project, which provides support and services related to the restoration of Oregon's native freshwater mussel population. The tribe operates the only freshwater mussel process for research and restoration regionally. Freshwater mussels are a first food of significant cultural and ecological importance, and restoring self-sustaining mussel populations for the restoration of tribal harvest and cultural opportunities is vitally important to the tribe. Our freshwater mussel program lacks a broad stock population of Oregon floaters, which is known to exist in the Kellogg impoundment. This population will need to be relocated when Kellogg Creek is restored. The Tribes Muscle Program has collaborated with Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement Project, the North Clackamas Watershed Council, and the Xerxes Society for Invertebrate Conservation to utilize these mussels for propagation research, which will aid in the recovery of this ecologically and culturally important species in the region. Equally important, this multi-agency collaborative effort is indicative of the community-centered nature and creative partnerships of the Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement Project towards achieving multiple objectives for fish, wildlife, and people, including the interests of tribes like the Confederated Tribes of Umatilla Indian Reservation. We support this project, and we urge you to do the same. Please contact me if you have questions or additional needs. Sincerely, Eric J. Quemps, the Natural Resources Director for the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. I want to thank the tribes and their members for sharing these letters of support for the project. It's clear through these letters that they are able to develop, this project can develop, and they address the and deliver on the deep tribal interests of this site and within this region. I think this is a great example of how we can work with and encourage other jurisdictions to work with the tribes, just like we are trying to do here at Metro, and really make sure to uphold and listen to these voices of these sovereign nations who've been here since time immemorial, and work in collaboration. So we really appreciate this opportunity to share these in this project. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Linda to introduce some representatives from the project's leadership team, so you can hear some more from them.
Yes, thanks, John. So I'm going to introduce some representatives from the Kellogg Creek Project leadership team. We'll cede some time for them to share here. So from North Clackamas Watersheds Council, we have Neil Schulman. From City of Milwaukee, we have the Mayor, Lisa Beatty. From Oregon Department of Transportation, Shelly Romero. Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs, Jeff Fogel. And American Rivers, April McEwen.
Thank you, staff and President Peterson and the council. We obviously are very supportive of this recommendation, and as you have probably all heard me say, the opportunity to remove a dam in the center of a city across the street from a high school that is 59% free and reduced lunch kids, and replace a 90-year-old bridge sitting on a 176-year-old dam does not come around often. We have a window of opportunity, and we really thank Metro for opening up the opportunity for us to seek larger federal funding. We've already received the largest grant in NOAA fisheries history, but we have a window of opportunity, and we thank Metro for helping us seize it. This is a project that it has statewide significance as well as regional significance, and we are thrilled at the strength of the partnerships behind this project, both with our tribal partnerships, our local jurisdictions, our school partnerships. Again, this is an unparalleled opportunity for the community to see and understand a thriving stream in a thriving urban area. And I'll pass it to Mayor Beatty.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. In 2008 or 2009, I went to my first meeting on what we then called the Kellogg for Coho initiative. Current representative, former Mayor Gamba, and I were both planning commissioners at the time in Milwaukee, and ODF&W, NOAA, Army Corps of Engineers, a lot of people were at that meeting, and I learned that they had actually been working on it for 10 years at that point. So this has really been a quarter century in the making to get us to this point. A lot of people, when we talked about it then, it was about fish passage. As you've seen in the applications and in the tours of the facility, it's about a lot more than fish passage now. That's one important piece, but it's about a lot more. And I would note that the park that will be created by removal of the impoundment is answering a need that we're hearing in our community. The North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District did a survey earlier this year, and I expected calls for dog parks or skate parks or swimming pools to be at the top of the list. The single most requested thing is more access to green space, more paths, more walking paths, more access to green space. So this will address that need in the community. It will also address a divide that Highway 99E creates between our downtown and the riverfront and provide a safer crossing for people underneath the highway. We have 3 lights. People can cross now, but not everybody feels safe doing that. Certainly people with young children, people with limited mobility will have a much better access when there's a safe undercrossing. I could go on into other things, but I know our time is limited, so I just want to thank the Metro staff for their work on this, and thank those of you who came out to have a look at the dam. I hope you'll provide this crucial local match to help us leverage the federal funding to create what I do think is truly a large-scale community vision that's been in the process for a quarter century. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Council President Peterson and Commissioners, Councilors. I am Shelley Romero with ODOT Region 1, and I am excited that I get to work on really odd projects at ODOT, including this one. It's super atypical. But ODOT is committed and excited about the Kellogg Creek Restoration Project as a partner and as an organization that has a record of delivery. We were brought in as the delivery agency to help oversee the design and construction of this project. This project has a transportation nexus, but it's actually much more of a larger scale environmental project with other benefits. The Kellogg Creek project highlights the importance of a resilient infrastructure by replacing, as Neil said, a 90-year-old bridge that rests on a 176-year-old dam. The project also provides the opportunity to improve new safety and access improvements by designing and constructing a new off-grade bicycle and pedestrian crossing. Even if you don't have small kids or mobility challenges, crossing 99E, if you've ever tried to do it, is not fun. High volumes and fast speeds. Kellogg Creek location has been identified as the #1 priority fish passage barrier owned by ODOT statewide. For all these reasons, ODOT supports the Kellogg Creek restoration projects and asks you to grant full funding to this project. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Jeff Hogel. I'm an employee of the Warm Springs Tribes. I am not a tribal member. The Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs Reservation of Oregon have always worked as stewards of natural resources in their usual and accustomed places, including in the Willamette Valley. The Warm Springs Reservation is located about 70 miles from here. It's made up of Confederated tribes. The 3 tribes are the Paiutes, the Wasco, and the Warm Springs. The tribes have reserved rights off of the reservation in their usual and accustomed places, including the Willamette Valley. The project team has expressed strong interest around the tribe's involvement this coming year for both technical and cultural design aspects. The tribes are grateful for the invitation and look forward to participation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I don't even need a booster seat. Good morning, counselors. My name is April McEwen, and I manage American River's Northwest Dam Removal Program. I specialize in developing and managing complex, sustainable infrastructure and river restoration projects. American Rivers is a national nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. They have decades of experience completing and working with partners to complete complex projects like Kellogg and leveraging federal funding to do so. Regional offices like mine work with our staff in DC to secure funding for projects like Kellogg and to advance policies for good projects for people and wildlife. Kellogg project is a priority for our organization, and we look forward to partnering with Metro on this.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much to everyone for taking the time to come here today from the Kellogg Creek team and sharing those points about your project and the passion that you have for it. For now, I'll do next slide and transition back to John.
Thank you. So just want to also highlight we'll have a few future touch points that you currently see, and we're open to changing the frequency to meet council's needs. But we will keep you informed on progress towards executing and funding agreements, finalization of funding agreements, and the continued submittal of letters of interest throughout this program. Additionally, to be responsive to council direction we've heard from you, Parks and Nature staff will continue to support productive conversations with the Bird Alliance of Oregon and explore relevant funding opportunities across the entire Parks and Nature bond, including the upcoming solicitation for the Nature Neighborhoods Capital Grant Program. Those upcoming capital grants pre-application deadline is January 21st, 2025. Next slide. In wrapping up, again, we are here to request your support and adoption of resolution number 245445 for the purpose of approving funding for the Parks and Nature Bond's large-scale community visions program. And we would be happy to answer and respond to any questions that you might have. So thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. This is an exciting moment. I just want to remind council that if they have any technical questions at this point, that would be appropriate. There is more time to make comments, probably in complete and utter support of this project later after we have a public hearing as we vote. So just want to make sure that we get the most out of our staff while we have them. Any questions for staff? Councilor Lewis and then Councilor Juan.
Sure, thank you so much. I'm bottling up my excited remarks, but I do have a technical question. So you mentioned the upcoming date for the Nature and Neighborhood Capital Grant in January. Can you remind me when round 3 for this set of funds is expected to open?
For large-scale community visions?
Yes.
Currently, the solicitation for LOIs is still open, so we continue to get those submittals. In terms of when we would come back to a decision for you about the third round, we want to have that discussion with you sometime next year because there's other pieces about the program. So I think we don't have a set date of when we would be bringing that back to you, but we want to get through this rounds, check back in with you all with the process, and yeah, so.
Okay. Well, I am obviously on record for having extreme support for what we're doing here today, but I also just want to lift up Bird Alliance and where they are in their process. And I do think large scale community vision is appropriate. And I do think that the amount of money available in this bucket versus other buckets shouldn't be downplayed. So we'll look forward to future conversations about round 3. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Huang, and then Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to all the staff and community members who came in. Really, inspired by this project. And like Councilor Lewis said, I'm also inspired by the 82nd Avenue Bird Alliance project. Happy to share that the Portland Clean Energy Fund Committee recommended $55 million in funding for the 82nd Avenue Transit project. There's just a lot of energy and excitement there. And I think Metro's playing a key role in the redevelopment of that corridor. So I just wanted to uplift that as well. My technical question is, just like many of our projects throughout this agency, we're hoping for a local match for federal funds. For this project, what happens, and I hope this doesn't happen, but if we, make this award and the federal government doesn't come through, what would happen to those funds?
That's a good question. Do you have those details, Linda, from the project team of what
would happen to the 10 million?
Right. I guess I could answer if they're not able to execute on the project within the funding agreements, we would have contingencies that if they're not able to actually execute it, that I assume as we have in other agreements that the funds would be returned or the funds would go back into the pot for council decision.
And is there a time period with that?
I think that gets worked out in the agreement, and so we're pretty early stages, right? Since we haven't made there's no decision made yet, but that is a conversation that would be worked into the agreement with the project team and with legal as well.
Our overall intent of this bond program is to fully spend the full amount, all the bond funds by 2031. So think those are things we continue to come back to council to if there's any projects that for some reason feel like they're not able to meet those timelines and have those conversations with you all. But yes, I think Lynn is correct. We'd have that written into the funding agreements in terms of stipulations for phases. And
Yeah, I think just on all of complex community vision awards, I think we just want to be really clear about, having a timeline and realistic expectations for project delivery, and also a plan for, if for some reason projects don't come to fruition, does that then go back to a pod, or what the process is for that?
yeah, and each one might be different because some of these are intended to have with multiple projects that we have across the bond portfolio, or some of these funding programs where they might be able to complete a component with these funds and maybe other components of the larger project don't happen. But the goal is that these funds need to go towards, again, that habitat restoration uplift. So some of those components may be able to happen, but not others. And I don't want to speak for the Kellogg project team because it's obviously got a lot of different pieces to it. But that's the overall intent, is that if these bond dollars are spent, they're spent towards that nature and habitat type of projects.
Understood. Thank you.
Councilor Rosenthal and then Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll save some of my more laudatory comments for after the public hearing, but I do have one question, and this is actually for the mayor. One of the things that restoration of urban streams, particularly in the Puget Sound area, has shown is that it requires a great deal more attention, shall we say, to stormwater control. And I just wanted, if the mayor might comment a little bit on whether the alignment of the stormwater control in the city of Milwaukee with the restoration efforts, and whether there's anything that needs to be done. I'm assuming that it's been taken care of because I'm familiar with the previous mayor and I know his concerns. So
Thank you for the question. I asked April to come up with me because I'm not a stormwater expert. I am confident that this team, which has been diving in for a couple of years now, has thought about that, but I will defer.
So the project has several sustainability objectives, and sustainable design of the systems, including stormwater drainage into the project area, is certainly a priority. We are using the Envision sustainability framework to verify the project and use a third party to verify that sustainability. So we feel very confident in our project team to develop solutions that will treat any stormwater inputs into the project area. And we've actively been working with that and PSU, some research students, on identifying cold water inputs into the project area to maximize and optimize those benefits.
great, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Gonzalez and then Simpson.
Thanks, President Peterson. John and Linda, I recall from one of the tours I was able to go on for the Kellogg Creek project, the aspirational match, or there is a match that would be coming. Can you talk to us about what that is? Or what the project team expects our dollars to multiply
Yes.
into?
So this would be the 20% non-federal match for that federal funding that we mentioned. And so some of the questions we explored with all applicants was, what would it mean if you were to receive a reduced award amount? And in those conversations with the Kellogg Creek team, since it's sort of proportional, right? If they were to receive $7 million, then it would unlock up to $35 million, which is a significant reduction, right? So the full $10 million does allow them to potentially unlock that $50 million for construction. And so that's sort of the idea, is that it just makes the project that much stronger. They do have significant support at the federal level with NOAA fisheries, as well as with the sovereign nations of the tribes. So that was the non-federal match piece and how it unlocks those amounts at the federal level.
For sure. So it's a 1 to 5, right? That's great. I think with the question of the timeline of our agreements and the funding, just because I think that's an important comment. Just my general feedback on that for y'all is, these large scale vision projects are highly complex, as we know, and I think setting like a timeline kind of can feel kind of arbitrary sometimes. So I think I'd rather recommend that we lean into, when we vote on this is a long-term commitment to realizing the projects in this area. And kind of being, I'm just kind of saying that because as an agency and as a council, I hope that we can lean into the discomfort of these projects are happening until they're not, right? And when that moment comes, then we'll need to reevaluate. But I think from the time that we've started the large scale community visions, a lot of the projects even dating back a handful of years now, none have been fully executed, and that's okay to me because we're trying to make these foundational seed investments in hopefully transformational projects. So just kind of calling that out too for the broader public as well, that understands more or less where I'm coming from, and I think where the council is coming from as well. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Simpson.
Thank you, President Peterson. Thank you, Director Blasher and Linda, for your continued work on this. Massive support for this project. I don't think we will. This is a once in a lifetime project in my mind. It's particularly with that old infrastructure that's going to get ripped out. And I do want to uplift that the Bird Alliance's project is one that would have significant benefit to communities. So I want us to keep working at that because it is super important along that corridor. And I want to uplift the work that's happening there from Councilor Lewis and Councilor Wong on the 87. Shelley, thank you. I'm just going to say it out loud. Thank you. Any opportunity that we can get to make our streets safer for pedestrians, I welcome it because, we've had a time and we continue to have a time with addressing pedestrian fatalities. So, and that is a dangerous hotspot. Even myself, when I crossed it to go on a tour, I was scared. And I don't get scared about a lot of things. And I do have a question. I want, you brought up the piece around the students and the educational aspects of it. Could you speak a little bit about the wildlife education potential that could happen with that school and that site with it being so close?
Sure. I'll look to me if you got more details.
Yeah, I'm sure the project team could speak to it in more detail, but they have partnerships with the local high school and are developing and already have a series of programs in place to learn more about, watersheds, restoration, and a lot of work with the different aquatic animals that are found in the creek. And so it's just considered that will be ongoing and develop even stronger as the program progresses. I can also look into a little bit more detail and provide it to you afterward if that's helpful, since I don't want to misrepresent anything either. But those partnerships are in place and are a significant part of the work that the team does as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Linda, because, I hear PSU, I hear us, I'm like the school, I'm like, that's going to be a test lab for everything, right? There's going to be a learning lab for everybody. And so I want to uplift that piece of the project too, because that's super important, especially as we continue to move into a greener future. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Seeing that there are no more questions, we'll move on to public comment. So thank you both for the presentation and all the hard work in getting us to this point, and we'll see you in a minute. So I will now open public comment on resolution number 24-5445. Georgia, will you please read the procedures for providing public comment?
If anyone wishes to testify on resolution number 24-5445, now is the time to do so. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. I'll manage a timer to go off at the 3-minute mark. If you have not already signed up to speak, you can do so now. If you are joining us on Zoom, you can sign up to speak by raising your hand on Zoom. Depending on your version of Zoom, the raise hand function has its own tab or is located within the reactions tab. Those calling in can raise their hands by dialing *9. If you are joining us in person, you can sign up by filling out one of the blue cards in the back of the room and bringing it up to me. For those joining us on Zoom, I will promote you to a full panelist when it is your turn to testify. I will call on your name or phone number when it is your turn to testify, and a window will appear asking you to accept being promoted to a panelist. Once you click to accept, your Zoom window will close for just a brief moment before you rejoin as a panelist, where you will be able to turn on your camera if you like. As a reminder, you do not need to give your physical address. However, please introduce yourself for the record before testifying. And Council President Peterson, we have one person who has signed up to testify. Micah Mescal, you can come up and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Council President Peterson and councilors. My name is Micah Meskel, and I'm with the Bird Alliance of Oregon. I lead our urban conservation work, and I'm joined here by my boss.
Stuart Wells, Executive Director of Bird Alliance of Oregon.
And we want to start with thanking you all for the effort you have taken over many years to create an opportunity like this. This large-scale community project, our program, is innovative, it's completely new, and it is transformational for enacting community-led visions. And so grateful that you have helped steward it or help envision it in the bond measure initially, and then steward it. I also want to thank staff, especially Linda and John, in helping implement that new concept and having offered so much assistance and collaboration over the last almost year on our effort around this project. So both Stuart and I have led our large-scale community vision proposal for the 82nd Nature Center, which proposed to build a nature trail and a nature park and some connecting infrastructure that would have I will speak that into existence, that will really, be a core component of our revitalization of a 12-acre brownfield in Northeast Portland that will connect to the other significant investments, whether it's what, as Duncan mentioned, the significant improvements to transportation improvements with the $55 million that was just dedicated towards helping make that a reality. But also the investments that Metro is making at the affordable housing, in the affordable housing space, and that we are building connectivity to some potential locations of future facilities, and we're just really excited about that opportunity. And today we're also disappointed, and we're disappointed that we aren't being recommended for funding. And we completely agree with the decision that staff has come forward with. The Kellogg Creek proposal is transformative, just as ours is, but also has a very near-term opportunity to unlock some significant match. And our organization has actually been supportive of that and a champion of that project going back 20 years, and we want to continue to support that project going forward. So completely agree with the rationale and the urgency of funding that. I think Metro has an opportunity, to provide that timely investment, and at the same time, we feel Metro's eventual investment in our project will have the same impact of helping us in the community unlock and facilitate other investments to enable our East Portland Nature Center to have a truly transformational impact. We really appreciate staff's dedication to work collaboratively with us to explore relevant funding opportunities across the bond portfolio, and continue to think outside the box on how to support projects like ours and others as they come forward. A couple quick suggestions I implore you to consider is, as John mentioned, the Nature and Neighborhood Grants, capital grants opportunity, I think is a viable opportunity, though the scale of it cannot have the intended impact that this program has. So we're going to continue to have conversations with staff around how we might be able to phase or put in an initial piece of our proposal into that, which would, I think, feed a couple birds with one seed, in that it would help lessen our eventual ask at the next large-scale community vision opportunity. It will also help spend down that program, which I know is a big a top strategy, and allow us to get started in the immediate, which we're ready to do. We just closed on the property a couple weeks ago. We are breaking ground on a couple pieces of our project, and we're ready to go. The last suggestion is around the future large-scale community vision opportunity. We think it's the best fit for our proposal as we've envisioned it. It would allow for the catalytic impact that you all are looking for, and we implore you to consider in the near term in 2025 a next round of prepared proposals. And in the future, think about how other funds could be layered into this space that might be available over the duration of this bond. So to close, as I mentioned, we're ready to get started. We're also very excited about the Kellogg project, and we look forward to being up here with our partners like McDaniel High School, like the 82nd Coalition, like Dharma Rain, like our legislative champions, to speak to the holistic impact that they have brought to the visioning of our project, but as importantly, the ultimate implementation and the usage of our project going forward.
Thank you.
Way over 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I apologize, but I also wanted to thank council members and council president for recognizing and actually endorsing this 82nd project. One other thing I wanted to
Could you please state your name for the record, please?
I'm sorry. Thank you. Stuart Wells with Bird Alliance of Oregon. And I just want to take 1 second and mention also this is a brownfield site. And it's one of our core missions to revitalize these kinds of sites. They're very difficult to do that, but our project actually does that. And it's something that the community has been clamoring for. They really want to see something exciting happen on that site. It's been sitting dormant for 20, 40 years. So with respect to time, I just wanted to mention that aspect of this project as well. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both for the vision and the continued vigilance towards it. Thank you so much.
All right, we have one more person who has signed up to testify on Zoom. Their name is Adam Khosrabadi, and I'm promoting you to a panelist now. Your time will begin when you start speaking. And your camera is off, but I see that you're unmuted.
Yeah, I apologize. My camera is going to be off here. I'm on my phone. My name is Adam Khosrabadi. I'm a Milwaukee City Councilor. I just wanted to testify and first off thank Metro staff and council for their recommendation on the shortly after I moved in Milwaukee. I learned very quickly about the TAM and its detriment, its current detriment, and the possibility for the revitalization. I'm sure I don't have to remind everyone. I think enough's been said of how this meets the criteria for the Metro large-scale community vision. Just with the habitat restoration, the transportation and community livability, housing. I mean, it hits each one. Tribal partnerships, racial equity. So again, I just want to reiterate my appreciation just for having this opportunity. This has been a long time coming to get this project going, and I feel like it's at a point where it's finally moving in the direction everybody's been waiting for. So, and I also want to just hearing the Bird Alliance. I just appreciate the work they're doing and what they're trying to do, and if there's anything I can do to help or be an advocate for that project as well, please feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Not seeing anyone else in the audience or on Zoom. Yes, not seeing anyone else.
Okay, seeing no one running forward and no hands raised, I will close the public hearing on the resolution number 245445 and call for a motion on resolution number 24-5445 by Councilor Lewis, maybe?
Yes, Madam President, I would like to move resolution 245445.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Lewis made the motion and it was seconded by Councilor Simpson. So with that, councilors, any further discussion? And why don't we start out with Councilor Lewis?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam President, for the opportunity. There's not a lot that I get to vote on in this seat that I can feel in my bones is going to make such an impact. It's going to make an impact for people in Milwaukee. It's going to make an impact for the region. It's going to make an impact for salmon and fish. It's going to make an impact for freshwater mussels, the Latin name of which I can't remember, but are critically important not only for the ecosystem, but for a tribe. There is so much good in this project, and it fulfills the mission that we set forward with this bucket of money. It is knocking it out of the park, to use a sports metaphor. I'm so excited to be here today to unlock the possibility that the community has been talking about since before I moved to Milwaukee in 2007. It's an opportunity for folks to cross the street safely. It's an opportunity to move past outdated infrastructure that no longer serves any need and creates hindrances. We have the opportunity to create green space, safe place for kids to recreate, a safe place for kids to do science. All of you have been out there with me. You've seen students in the water already. Can you imagine, once the dam is removed, the work that they're going to be able to do? It's exciting. Students from Milwaukee High School. I'm also excited about the opportunity to unleash federal dollars to fully fund a project. So often what we do is just enough. But with these dollars unlocking federal match, we have the opportunity to really do work that elevates not only transportation and habitat, but connectivity to our affordable housing development that is happening rapidly in Milwaukee, and a connection to economic opportunity through the job training, through the skill building. So this not only is an exciting day for Milwaukee, I think it's an exciting day for the region. I am so pleased that we have members here today, but even more so want to recognize there are folks who are not here today. Some of them we heard in the voice given through the letters read into the record from the tribes. Others of us have received some supportive documentation, including from former Mayor and Representative Gamba, who long stewarded this project and held together a coalition when there was no funding in sight. We also received testimony from Dr. Leslie King and her work and research on the Social Vulnerability Index and the unique position that this part of the region plays with social vulnerability, with extreme heat, with lack of tree canopy, with heat in the water that is not felt on the other side of the river in Dunthorpe in Southwest Portland. There's a lot of community support for this project. Not everybody you stop in downtown Milwaukee is going to be able to tell you about salmonoids or about extreme heat or about the folks who live in poverty and don't have access to green space. But everybody knows the problem with 99E, with safe crossing, and with outdated infrastructure. There's community buzz and support, and I'm so glad that Metro gets to help lay the foundation to getting something done there. Colleagues, thank you for coming to site and visiting, and thank you for recognizing Milwaukee's important place in the region in this program.
Thank you, and thank you for being a champion of the project as well, Counselor. Counselor Rosenthal, and then Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, a ditto on everything that Councilor Lewis said. I think that's all important. Secondly, I want to thank the Bird Alliance for their testimony and their supportive ideas. Birds and bees are also very important, and restoration of our brownfields is very important, and I hope we can be supportive of that moving forward. Third, I want to thank particularly the city of Milwaukee and the North Clackamas for their foresight and persistence in moving this forward and developing the coalition that's important. I'm an unrecovered surface water hydrologist, and I'm still in favor of that. So projects like this make me almost emotional. Well, they make me emotional because I think they're very important. I think it's wonderful that we're moving forward little bits by restoring habitats in our urban environment is an important thing, and we have to pay attention to it. I want to point out one other thing, though. Recently, we had the forum here. Recently, they had the economic forum, and one of the sessions of the forum had to do with the Water Resources Department and water rights and water allocation and about tribal issues. And I just want to point out that I want to give great kudos to the process we have had in engaging the tribes and their support. And I think we have a bit that we can teach the state in asking a question to the state representatives, they said, "Well, it's something we're working on." Well, maybe we can give them a few tips on how to engage the tribes, because as you know, the tribes have treaty rights and they have water rights and salmon rights, and so this is something that in this project we have a lot of support, and I think it's something that we can build on. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Gonzalez.
Thanks, President Peterson. Well, I got goosebumps from Counselor Lewis's comments and statements about the impact of the project. So just want to spend some time to kind of celebrate Counselor Lewis and also all the incredible partners that have gotten us to this state, which she has listed, I think, exceptionally. Kind of going back to when we were designing the Parks Bond renewal re-up, Councilor Lewis was there day one when we were talking about creating this large-scale community vision program, and that was 6 years ago, 5 years ago. It was a long time. And I think the level of community leadership advocacy to make sure that money makes it to Milwaukee and to Clackamas County is really special. So I want to take time to celebrate that leadership to do that. And also, Shelly got a shout out earlier as well. You know, as JPAC chair, we work a lot with ODOT and transportation spaces here at Metro. And it's true that ODOT as a delivery agency plays such an important role for the intersection of the built environment in so many of the values in our region. So can't go undersaid and understated how important the role that the State Department that has such a critical intersection in our daily lives has in being a champion in this project. To the city, to the amazing scientists that worked on this project. Amazing. And when we were able to tour the site, we also learned that there's a whole bunch of housing being developed in that area. Again, coming back to the aspirations of the large scale community vision was, you know, environment, transportation, housing, building a 21st century region that we can all coexist in kind of reaching to that. So I feel so proud. It's not every single day that this body gets to authorize $10 million. I mean, and this is truly special. It's kind of like sitting in that moment with the level of resources that we're getting to support right now is very humbling. And another case for regionalism and for this metro region pooling our resources together for high impact projects that are transformational. So congratulations, and hopefully to many more to come in the near future as well from partners and also the other partners that we have committed to in the past, hoping that we can continue to make this a tradition in the region where we do these kinds of projects.
Thank you, Counselor. I just want to end and say I was introduced to this project in 2009 when y'all started it as chair of Clackamas County, and I want to say I forgot you were on Planning Commission at that point. And then also Representative Gamba. There are a lot of people who have held this very tightly for a very long time. That's a long time to work on a project. And I think what we're finding in the region is that the best way to move forward as a region is to take care of our region together. There's a little bit of reliance on state and federal, but over time, federal money has dried up, and it will continue to do so. And our state has a lot of demands on it for infrastructure and other projects, and very little revenue. So it's a proud moment that the big thoughts that this council had 6 years ago to start looking at things differently and how to be a partner differently because things have changed over time is paying dividends to take advantage of things that we weren't able to take advantage of in the past. So I just want to say kudos to my council. Working with you guys, these are those moments where you're very proud that you had no idea where this program would go 6 years ago. but it's really coming into its own. And I think as we move forward as a region, we're going to have to take this as a lesson learned of how to do things differently. Metro is really becoming that regional partner and being able to move things forward and get things off the ground, whether it's affordable housing or solving, I shouldn't say solving the homelessness problem, but really working to make sure that people are not homeless, and if they are, it's rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. But being there with that set of funding here for our folks is really making a difference. So I just want to say thank you for holding this project for so long and so tightly, and looking forward to being able to cross over to the project with you and have the first shovel digging. That'll be a good moment. So thank you to all our staff as well who have worked on this, because it has been it's been a good set of partnerships, and I am so proud of the work that you all do to work to make sure these things come together, because they aren't. There's a reason why they're called complex. Thank you, John, for acknowledging it in the title right up front. With that, if there's no further discussion, Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Simpson.
Aye.
Counselor Lewis.
Aye.
There it is.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Ditto. Yeah.
Counselor Wong.
Aye.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Enthusiastic, yay team.
Counselor Nolan.
We.
And Council President Peterson.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations. Awesome. Thank you all again. And we still have a couple things on our agenda, so it's hard to celebrate in the middle of the meeting. But do we want to take a picture? Is it worth?
Yes.
I think it's worth taking the
Yes.
time to take a picture. All right, we'll meet you up front.
Definitely work. No, we're gonna take a picture.
Oh.
And then we'll go back.
Yeah, so that's what it's too.
And I'm holding space. I mean, we have to use Alright, tell people in the back. And then there's surface water hydrant.
This is a video. Where's just a standard photo? Video, slow-mo.
Airdrop.
Oh, thank you.
You may have to put it wide angle.
Oh, it's got a level. That's nice. Wait, can everybody take 2 steps to their left? At John.
Yeah.
But go over on that side. You're part of the team now. No.
Marisa.
Wait, can you go over on that side? Let's go grab people off the side. Sorry, it's bothering me. Okay, I took like 20. Could you send me one? Long. Do you think you could actually send me one of those? I could send along with the press release. No, I don't think so.
All right, we're gonna need to get back into session, but
I know.
good job, Mayor. Wow. Very exciting.
again.
Can I spell my own name right?
Alrighty. Counselors could take their seats. That would be lovely.
Good team. Good team. All right, thank you. What a nice way to have a end to that. All right, we are going to move on to our ordinances. First reading and public hearing, ordinance number 24-1523, for the purpose of amending Title VI of the Urban Growth Management Functional Plan to require local adoption of boundaries for centers on the 2040 Growth Concept Map. Councilors, the ordinance before us today presents changes to our urban growth management functional plan that are required by state law. These changes will support continued planning of regional and town centers identified in the 2040 Growth Concept Map. Here to provide an overview of the ordinance, we have Glenn Hamburg, our Senior Regional Planner, and Aaron Key, Urban Policy and Development Director. Normally, you've been before us on completely different items.
I know I like to mix it up when I come.
No,
And I'm kind of disappointed we don't have the blobs. We're not going to be allowed to have the blobs anymore, but go ahead. That's what they were referred to when we adopted the actual 2040. We called them the blobs.
I agree. They'll still be as colorful. We can keep them as colorful and as fun, but they won't be blobs.
Okay.
They'll be
As long
better
as you promise
defined.
They're colorful and fun.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning. Council President Peterson and councilors, I'm Erin Key, Urban Policy and Development Manager. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm here with Senior Regional Planner Glenn Hamburg. That is Senior Regional Planner. I would like to congratulate Glenn on that.
We have to get him a golden pin.
As you said, we're here to present some text amendments intended to fulfill a state requirement. The cities and counties involved in this are all aware, and we have heard very little concern about the requirement. And these amendments have been shared with MTAC and MPAC, who have both recommended their approval. Glenn's going to share more information about the context and the details, and we'll both stay to answer any of your questions.
Awesome.
Great, thank you, Council. Glenn Hamburg with Metro, and we'll just go ahead and go to the next slide,
At
please.
Metro. With Metro, at Metro.
At Metro, with Metro, here at Metro. As Aaron mentioned, and as the Council President mentioned, this ordinance would amend Title VI of our Urban Growth Management Functional Plan, which is Chapter 307 of the Metro Code. Why are we doing this? Well, because we're required to do it. There's an element of the Oregon Administrative Rules, cited right there on your screen, that requires Metro to make this amendment to Title VI of our functional plan. And we're required to do that by the end of this calendar year. So that's why we're here. The ordinance is limited in scope, meaning that we're just taking on what we're required to take on, with a few related technical amendments while we're tinkering in Title VI. While we're under the hood, might as well fix some other things. But generally, we're just doing what we're required to by the state without any large other substantive policy changes in the code. As Aaron noted, the amendments before you have received a recommendation for approval by MTAC in June and then by MPAC in July. Next slide, please. So what is this all about? Well, you may have heard the term CFEC before. CFEC stands for Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities. It's a state program. It's a state initiative that started under former Governor Kate Brown, and it involves some changes to Oregon administrative rules. The intent of this initiative is multifold, but one of them is to reduce greenhouse gases in Oregon and also improve social equity in transportation services and community health, safety, and livability. So there are many aspects to CFEC, but one of those aspects is an intent to encourage denser, transit-oriented development, active transportation, and the greening of our urban spaces. Next slide, please. Another piece of background, as you all very well know, we have something called the 2040 Growth Concept. It's our long-range vision for our region's urban form. The geographic expression of that vision is our 2040 Growth Concept Map, which is now incorporated as a part of our regional framework plan, which has various goals and policies to achieve our vision. Those goals and policies are advanced by elements of our functional plans, including the Urban Growth Management Functional Plan, which has requirements and recommendations for cities and counties to work towards those priorities in the Regional Framework Plan. Next slide, please. An aspect of the 2040 growth concept are these centers, the affectionately referred to blobs. These centers in this vision are imagined to be areas of higher density development, walkable areas that are well served by transit that have a mixture of uses, and that are generally centers of economic development and housing. There are three types of centers in the growth concept. There's the central city, which is quite large and includes areas such as downtown, Goose Hollow, Albina, all the way over to the central east side. And the central city is meant to be the cultural and economic hub of our region. In addition to that, outside the central city are 8 regional centers. These are areas that are meant to serve populations of more than 100,000 people. And they might be characterized by things like 2 to 4 story development, larger commercial uses, government services, healthcare facilities, etc. So some examples of regional centers are the Oregon City Regional Center, the Clackamas Regional Center, downtown Gresham, Gateway, and Hillsborough. Finally, there are 32 town centers, and these are smaller. They're meant to serve populations of tens of thousands of people, and they're more locally focused and characterized by smaller scale retail uses and maybe 1 to 3 story developments. Next slide, please. So we have these centers depicted on the 2040 growth concept map, as well as on this other map that's included in Title VI of the functional plan. Here it is before you. These are the pink blobs. And next slide, please. So how does this relate all to CFEC and the ordinance before you? Well, one element of CFEC is an intention to accelerate the development and the transformation of all of these centers consistent with this vision of the 2040 growth concept through a number of mechanisms. So specifically, there are requirements in their related administrative rules concerning motor vehicle parking management. So what I mean by that are requirements to remove minimum off-street parking standards, and in some cases, impose maximum off-street parking standards. There are requirements for the provision of things like bicycle parking, prioritization of pedestrians, bicycles, and transit when designing streets in these areas, enhancement of pedestrian crossings, improvements to the tree canopy in these areas, and even, eventually, some reporting on housing production in these areas. To be sure, these are state requirements directly on our local governments, so directly on cities and counties in our region have been in direct communication with the state for some time, and so they're pretty up to speed on what they're going to need to do. But to do all of this, there's going to need to be a defined geography, and that's where this comes into play. One more thing on this slide, this looks like a lot of requirements on local jurisdictions, and they are, but one might wonder, what do the local jurisdictions get out of this? Well, without trying to break down all of the Oregon administrative rules off the top of my head, there are elements of this program that will facilitate jurisdictions being able to upzone properties in centers without needing to necessarily meet the burdens of motor vehicle transportation planning requirements. So in one sense, it might be easier for a jurisdiction to decide to approve higher density uses in these centers without being so concerned about cars. And we've heard from local jurisdictions that they're glad about that. Next slide, please. So currently in Title VI, which is the title of the Urban Growth Management Functional Plan that speaks to centers, there's actually no requirements. Title VI takes an incentive approach right now to centers. So there's an opportunity to receive what's referred to as a regional investment. So that's an investment in high capacity transit if a jurisdiction does a number of things. For example, adopting a boundary, doing certain assessments of what is there right now and what the deficiencies are in the general vision of developing these centers. But there's no requirements in Title VI right now, including no outright requirement to adopt a boundary defining the geography of this space. CFEC changes that. An element of CFEC requires us at Metro to change Title VI to require of our local jurisdictions the adoption of center boundaries. So that's the ordinance before you today. Specifically, the requirement is the adoption of boundaries for centers that have urban land use designations. So there's one center on the growth concept map, the Damascus Town Center, that hasn't yet been planned for urban uses, so it doesn't need a boundary yet. It will need a boundary when it's planned for urban uses, for example, by the city of Happy Valley. The boundaries need to be in the general location of the centers as depicted on the growth concept map, and then the local governments will need to adopt these boundaries by ordinance by the end of next calendar year. And we've been in communication with cities and counties about this requirement, so it's not going to be much of a surprise. Indeed, as noted in the staff report, many jurisdictions have already adopted these boundaries. Next slide, please. So the proposed amendments will fulfill the CFEC requirements on Metro to amend our code to include this requirement. We've also chosen to require an adopted boundary of the central city, despite the rule only requiring boundaries for regional and town centers. We just want to treat all centers the same, including the central city. I noted that the boundaries need to be adopted locally by the end of next calendar year. Some of the text in the amendments has a reporting requirement where jurisdictions are going to report to us the adopted boundaries within the first month of 2026, and then we're going to update all relevant maps to reflect the local boundaries that they've adopted. Only one jurisdiction needs to adopt boundaries for a center, so in some cases, those pink blobs that you've seen span jurisdictional boundaries. So the question is, well, who has to adopt a boundary for it? Either one. There's a time frame for reporting adopted boundaries to Metro, as I mentioned, and then also there's some minor non-substantive cleanup amendments included in the ordinance. Next slide, please. I believe that's it. So I'm just here to answer any questions you might have about all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this point? Technical questions? Councillor Wong.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Glenn. I have two technical questions. When you were saying the boundaries are to be adopted by locally by 2025, does that mean by Metro or by our local jurisdictions?
The latter. So city councils and county commissions for the centers for which they have land use planning authority will need to have adopted by ordinance a boundary that is in the general location of the pink blob by the end of 2025.
And process-wise, what does that mean for Metro? Do we have other actions to take next year?
We're not going to have any further actions next year other than after, presuming this ordinance is adopted, after the ordinance is adopted, we're going to inform jurisdictions, hey, we've amended the functional plan. There's this requirement that you've heard about. You're going to need to let us know by a certain deadline what your adopted boundaries are. They're going to give us all the details about that and a copy of the ordinance, and then we're going to amend all of our various maps to show that adopted boundary.
Okay. And does that require council action after that? No.
No, the text in the proposed ordinance will require the chief operating officer to issue an executive order sort of acknowledging it. This is a process that mirrors some of the other ways that various Metro maps are amended. For example, the Title IV map.
Great, thanks. And just a quick question for Carrie, maybe. We've talked about when we amend code using plain language. Are we using, I mean, I looked up, it seems pretty plain to me, but has that been a thing?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Wong and members of the council. Yes, I would say largely I did catch a few errant shells in here, and if you you would like us to update that in time for next week, that would not be a substantive amendment, and so we could do so. But I don't think it's really necessary on the whole. 95% of this ordinance would meet our plain language requirements. It is technical, so sometimes, technical ordinances are going to be, I guess, a little more difficult for some to read, but I think it meets our plain language requirements.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rosenthal and then Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to climb into my Wayback Machine here and get back to the RTP that we approved last year. We all know, we have a pretty good idea what the central city is and the boundaries. We're going to see boundaries, and regional centers, of course, is another issue. The town centers is an issue. If you remember, and I pointed, one of my concerns with the RTP is that we talked about town centers as a concept and we never identified them. We never listed them. We didn't really verify them, and we certainly didn't identify transportation connections between them and the regional centers. So I'm just wondering if, and this obviously will not happen until 26, would it be appropriate to then amend the regional transportation plan to identify the specific town centers on the maps and to list them, and maybe even develop plans for connectivity between them, since we're going to have more information on local transportation modes and things like that?
Gosh, maybe so. I would probably want to chat with some transportation planners to see what they think about that. Do you have any thoughts, Aaron?
Well, I was going to start with, I think, I just want to clarify the town centers are indicated on the maps. Those are centers that are identified as specific locations. In terms of your ideas about how we should talk in the future about how they're connected and how the transit system or our transportation system impacts the success of those centers, I think that's a great conversation to have in the future, both through the RTP, but also in the future vision work that we have ahead of us, and kind of opening up and looking at the growth concept plan in general. There could be opportunities for that.
Thank you. Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you so much. I was following along, made perfect sense until you mentioned that there are places where center would cover multiple jurisdictions, but only one would be required to adopt. Thinking through an urban area that crosses jurisdictional boundaries between unincorporated county and a city, that makes some sense, particularly with the framework that many of the UGMAs have. But if we had two cities, that doesn't make sense to me. Can you back up a little bit the reasoning?
Yeah, so maybe I'll draw on two examples I can think of off the top of my head. Raleigh Hills is one of them, where if you look at the pink blob, it stretches across the boundary between Washington County and Multnomah County, indeed unincorporated Washington County and the city of Portland. Only Washington County or the city of Portland will need to adopt a boundary for a center in the general location of this conceptually planned town center in order to meet this requirement. That will be Washington County. They have most of the territory under that pink blob, and they've already endeavored to start on that work. And so it won't, despite this pink blob conceptually colored over a jurisdictional boundary, only one of these jurisdictions will need to adopt a boundary by ordinance to comply with this requirement of the states. Another example is the Pleasant Valley Town Center, the other end of the region. The blob crosses a jurisdictional boundary between the city of Gresham and the city of Portland. And the city of Gresham is going to take on the work for defining a boundary for the town center there for the purposes of this program. The city of Portland won't have to.
And I'll just say, this is not saying that those jurisdictions should not work together. It's simply streamlining the process, that they don't have to both take an official action by their councils or their boards.
Okay. Thank you. I get concerned that there may later be perception that these are not collaborative processes, and that we basically gave permission for difficult management decisions to become even more difficult because one party is in the lead without forced collaboration with the other. So as long as the expectation in these areas is that there is joint understanding of roles and responsibilities and collaboration through the process, I'm okay with only one ordinance or adoption of new code. But I do not want to get the position where this is perceived as legislative intent by Metro, that there is permission for one organization to go off and do whatever they will without the co-creation of the other.
Thank you, Counselor. That makes sense. One reason why this is ending up in Title VI, or proposed end up in Title VI, is the relevant language is more or less word for word what we're required to codify in a code by the relevant Oregon administrative rule. So the state is telling us we need to have this treatment of a blob that crosses jurisdictional boundaries, saying only one jurisdiction has to adopt a boundary for that center.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just sort of repeating that language in our code.
Okay. And I understand that that makes complete and total sense, and I don't think we should change it. It's just written by a bunch of people who live in Salem and maybe don't understand the complexity of local issues, particularly at the edges of boundaries.
Yeah, thank you.
With all due respect to all those nice people in Salem.
Well said.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else before we move on to the public hearing for the ordinance? All right, seeing none. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 24-1523. Georgia, will you please describe to the audience our procedures for the public hearing?
Absolutely. If anyone wishes to testify on ordinance number 24-1523, now is the time to do so. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. I will manage a timer to go off at the 3-minute mark. If you have not already signed up to speak, you can do so now. If you are joining us on Zoom, you can sign up to testify by raising your hand on Zoom. Depending on your version of Zoom, the raise hand function has its own tab or is located within the reactions tab. Those calling in can raise their hands by dialing *9. If you are joining us in person, you can sign up by filling out one of the blue cards in the back of the room and bringing it up to me. For those joining us on Zoom, I will promote you to a full panelist when it is your turn to testify. I will call on your name or phone number when it is your turn to testify, and a window will appear asking you to accept being promoted to a panelist. Once you click accept, your Zoom window will close for just a brief moment before you rejoin as a panelist, where you will be able to turn on your camera if you like. As a reminder, you do not need to give your physical address. However, please introduce yourself for the record before testifying. Council President Peterson, I am not seeing anyone in the audience, virtually or in person.
All right, seeing no one coming forward and no hands raised, I will close the public hearing and the second reading for council consideration and vote are scheduled for December 19th, 2024. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Did you want to take a photo?
Come on, Glenn. Glenn over here flexing his seniority over here.
When
Blobs.
we vote on it, you and
Blobs,
me picture.
blobs. Flex. Come on with it.
Okay, thank you. Chief Operating Officer Communication, not on blobs.
Not on blobs. I do have one update for you today, just to know that you'll be receiving some 7-day notices for the local share program in the next few days. They are for some really lovely projects in Gladstone, Gladstone Nature Park.
The city of River Grove has a project for the Stark boat ramp restoration. Wood Village is doing a wetland restoration, and Washington County is transferring some funds to THPRD for land acquisition. So you should see those in your inbox, and please let me or Parks know if you have any questions. But just wanted to share that we have some great local share projects moving forward.
Awesome, thank you. Would in those notices or along with those notices by separate email, can we get an update on the pending?
Sure.
Ones that are out there and how long they've been there, and even if there's an expected
status update?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. All right, counselor communications, counselors. We are all communicated out. Counselor Wong.
Um, we had MPAC yesterday evening, and one of the thank President Peterson for coming to share about the housing SHS potential reforms. We had a lively conversation, and then we followed that with a conversation on Montgomery Park, where MPAC voted to support that change to Montgomery Park in terms of the industrial, I guess, zoning or land.
Yep, industrial land.
Industrial land, and then we did have some time also to recognize the service of many folks who are departing from MPAC and folks that are joining. So we recognized was it Mayor Callaway, Commissioner Shaw, Commissioner Rubio for their service.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? Counselor Rosenthal.
Yeah, a couple things. So I want to add one thing to the impact agenda. There was a general discussion of the bonding potential for taking bonding up from bond availability that we have and prioritizing it on 82nd and TV Highway. There was quite a bit of discussion about that. There was some concerns, but no general opposition to that. So that, I think, is obviously of importance to Councilor Gonzalez and myself. That's one thing. Another thing I want to point out is that there was a forum. We had the forum, the Economic Development Forum. This year it focused on industrial expansion and also on the food and beverage industry. Sports Oregon will suggest next year that a similar one would focus on the economics of the sports industry. There was very little discussion, of course, as you know, we're in the middle of the Expo futures process, and there's other sports issues that are up for grabs at this point in time. So that's another thing. And WEA had a meeting this morning where, again, they focused primarily on the legislative agenda, particularly Governor Kotek's housing agenda and supportive services for social services. So, and some discussion of transportation, but nobody knows where that's going.
All right, Counselor Lewis.
Sure, I've raised my hand jointly with Councilor Gonzalez. We'd like to give a high level and brief update. You probably noticed our absence, but we were in Ohio, in the beautiful city. In the beautiful city of Cincinnati, which, by the way, is kind of remarkable what they've been able to accomplish. And an enjoyable place to be, which I did not expect to be part of my remarks today. But they are a very kind, welcoming community and have done some really cool stuff with their infrastructure. And if we're going to compete for tourism, man, we've got a long way to go. But we were there for APTA's Transit Ballot Measure Conference. We spent time talking to other cities who have been successful. And we've also talked with representatives of cities who, like us, have been unsuccessful at the ballot. We worked through a number of strategies, including ballot measure preparation, communications, choosing the right funding mechanism, how to work cohesively with a coalition, and many things that we did in 2020 are definitely the textbook recommendation, but there's also some things that we learned that I think we can utilize going forward. Councilor Gonzalez?
Yeah, for sure. We did definitely have the opportunity to learn from a lot of regions that are recognizing the power that transit and community development can have on activating their regions for tourism, for growth, and for all the things that we care about too. So I took some notes while we were there, but these cities have made these pledges over the next 20 years for their transit infrastructure. Columbus, $8 billion, Nashville, $6 billion, Seattle, $54 billion, Los Angeles, $120 billion, Denver, $5 billion, Phoenix, Arizona, $31 billion, San Francisco, $4 billion, Atlanta, $2.5 billion, and and also there's Austin put a lot of money in, but I can't find it on my notebook here. I think needless to say, we also were able to talk a little bit about and reflect on our 2020 transportation measure, and just really thinking through, what does our region need to be able to think big and to dream big about the 80 seconds and the TV highways and the 15 to 20 other corridors like it in the region. So it was very, very early kind of evaluation of frankly also what our competitor regions are doing, and how easily we can get left behind and or leapfrog in terms of infrastructure in this kind of between now and 2050. We also were able to spend a lot of quality time with former Metro Council President David Bragdon from the 2000s. And we talked about, he was there, the 2040 growth plan. And so just a whole bunch of conversations. He ran the transit center in New York City for 10 years and is now doing consulting for basically most major regions, working on transit projects, and to kind of being able to pull some of that wisdom that he had while he was here. And his feedback to us is, as we work on this future visioning, as we work on thinking through the future, it's like, make sure that you tie things to an investment plan. And if he could go back, that's one thing that he would really focus on. Make sure that you're connecting the goals of the region and you're getting people to buy into, well, then how are we going to pay for those things? Which I know that President Peterson, from the time that she joined the council, as well, has been singing that on the highest note. So again, I also did not expect to be as moved by Cincinnati, but it was really a special place, and I've never been to Ohio, and I'm really glad that we were able to be there.
And you had never been to Kentucky, but we walked there.
We did.
Because they have great bridges that include safe pedestrian access. Two cities of note. One, Nashville, not only for the level of investment, but the fact that they lost first and went back to the ballot and then they won. And then also Miami-Dade, which is county, and their ability to course correct using a ballot measure strategy. So offline, let's dig in deeper on those two case examples.
Yeah, and in fact, I believe Nashville lost 3 times over the course of the short history. They went back and they tried to continually improve. And the mayor of Nashville made that clear to me the day after the election in 2020. Keep going. So I'm really glad that you guys went and had the opportunity to do that and start thinking about what's next. So thank you. All right. If no other communications, then sorry,
If I might add one.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Manager. One quick point. One of the things the governor's office mentioned today was that they are concerned and they are tracking the issue of sanctuary cities. There have been some discussions on the part of the incoming administration that there may be some specific withholding of funds from sanctuary areas. And so the governor's office is tracking that, and I guess we'll pay attention to it as it goes.
Thank you. And of course, we will do everything in our authority to make sure that we continue the values within the sanctuary cities.
Yes.
So thank you. All right. And with that, we are adjourned. Our next meeting is Tuesday, December 17th, 2024 at 10:30 a.m. See you there.
Record.